Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Cobra Kai Studios. And in today's video, we are going to just specifically talk about the All Valley Karate Tournament fight that we see at the end of Season 1. This is going to be kind of as quick as I can make it, so it's not an hour-long video, but I want to detail some of the moves, blocks, kicks, etc. that are used by the cast in this fight specifically. What we'll go ahead and start with the very first fight of the All Valley Karate Tournament, which is Miguel. I can't remember who he fights in the very first one. It's the guy in the red suit. But anyways, obviously you see him set up and prepare with the iconic Daniel LaRusso kick. And for any of y'all wondering what that kick actually is, it's technically just the jumping front snap kick or front kick. It's depending on where you're taught. For us, they call it a front snap kick, but in all honesty, it's really just a front kick. What you will do is you'll stand on the opposing foot, and you're going to bring your knee up and bend it at like almost a 90-degree angle, and then you're going to slightly bend your other foot at the knee so you can create a leverage. You jump up and you snap your foot out, which obviously you see him do, and it connects perfectly, recreating Daniel LaRusso's famous kick. A lot of things that's kind of funny there is they say that was an illegal kick, so should Miguel have been disqualified right off the bat? Let me know, what do you think? I mean, there are such things as illegal kicks in our tournaments. Back when I was doing tournaments, now this might have changed by now, but when we were doing it, you couldn't do axe kicks. And axe kicks where you bring your foot straight up and straight down on the heel. Do you know what I mean? That is technically considered a dangerous kick because it could cause a lot of injury. But that's a very short fight, so that's all you see in that fight, obviously. The next fight we can go ahead and talk about will be Hawk. Well, not Hawk. Who's the next one that fights? What is her name? No, it's Robbie. So the next fight is Robbie, and in this fight, you see him use a lot of knife blocks. And what that means is pretty much your hand with your fingers extended. You can see him doing a upper knife block to block a kick, as well as a inner knife block. Me personally, there's a lot of different ways to do this. They can also consider it a palm block as well in a lot of cases where it's open palm blocking. Now, me personally, I'm not a big fan of this, especially because I feel like there's stronger ways to block, and that's a closed fist block. I feel like you have a little bit more control, but a knife block is very, very handy when a kick is coming from the side, and or a punch, and you can kind of scoop it out of the way in a sense, which allows you to spring back. Which it's kind of a fluent motion. There's a lot of different techniques that you can practice, and it's just going to kind of depend on the situation you're in. So say your opponent's going to throw a straight punch to your left side, you can either close fist block it, which my master always called it the ice cream scoop. Pretend you're scooping ice cream and out. I don't know, it's just kind of an interesting way that he would teach kids how to do this block. So he called it the ice cream scoop block. That's not its actual name. It would be the inner outside block, and you're going to use your forearm to actually connect with either punch, kick, whatever they're throwing. But it's kind of an interesting to see what they do in this show, because obviously they can't be 100% accurate to real life sparring. For one, you don't see any of them wear any kind of protective gear, including even mouthpieces. You don't even see them wear mouthpieces, and it's kind of something that's required in most tournaments. I mean, unless you're above 18, you usually have to wear some kind of protective gear. Unless it's point sparring, and for us, it was 16 and older. You didn't have to wear any gear, so you couldn't even enter point sparring if you wasn't 16 or older. And to be honest, most parents really didn't let their kids participate in that. They usually was 18 years or older, so that's just kind of something that's a little different than how they portray it in the show. So that part's kind of inaccurate, but it's still kind of fun to talk about. In the show itself, you see them use a lot of, what would you call them, front snap kicks. You see them use a lot of almost side kicks. It's like some of them are kind of done incorrectly, but in the same sense, there's still a side kick. And when you're sparring, you can't always expect to be able to throw a move perfectly. Now, the next one that we can talk about would be, what is her name? Aisha Robertson, that's what it is. Well, anyways, in her fight, you get to see some interesting, quicker moves. Obviously, when she's actually fighting, the very first thing you see them doing is the knife blocks, open hand knife blocks. It's just something I've seen a lot in this show. And then you do kind of, and when he does throw it round, when the opponent throws a roundhouse kick, she does use a closed fist block, forearm block. And then whenever you hear Johnny tell her go on the offense, you see a very interesting sweep that she does, where she sweeps him off of his feet, and then of course does a straight punch straight to his nose, which is hilarious. That's always a funny little part. Next fight, obviously, because that one's really short, there's really not much to talk about. There's pretty much just a few forearm blocks, knife hand blocks, a couple roundhouse kicks from the opponent, and then she sweeps him and punches him right in the face. So that's about it for that one. The very next fight that it goes into is going to be Hawk. And with Hawk, you see some very interesting things. One of the more notable things that he actually does is the flying elbow strike, which in some places that's not actually legal to do in a tournament. But the opponent, you can see, uses a lot of knife hand blocks. I'm telling you, the knife hand blocks are just very common in the show. It's not a bad thing. I mean, it does come in handy. It plays its part, and it helps in a lot of ways. But you see Hawk do a couple of inside-outside crescent kicks, which they're almost the same kick. It just depends on how you're performing it. For an outside crescent kick, you're going to say use your right foot. You're going to move it towards the left side of your body, out to the right side of your body in a crescent motion. For an inner crescent kick, you're going to do the same thing, but opposite. You're going to come from the outside in, sweeping across. And you see him do that a couple of times. And then, of course, you see him do the flying. It looks like an elbow. I can't ever really tell. But it's like an elbow punch, basically. And, that's how he gets his point. I don't know that would technically be legal. But apparently it is, according to Cobra Kai. For the show, it's legal. And for the next fight, which is... I can never remember the little kid's name. Bear with me on that one. He's not a very popular cast member. You don't see him very much. But you see the opponent right away do in our dojo, they called it a half aerial flip, which is, basically where you're not doing a full front flip, you're not doing a full back flip, you're basically doing a side flip, and he does that over his opponent, which is something I used to love doing. Then you see him do a front flip into a front snap kick, which ends the fight. Which they kind of cut that fight really short, because there's not, in all the other fights, there's a few points that are earned before each opponent actually wins. That one, they just show the one, and then that's kind of it. The next fight is with Miguel versus the very same person, and you see Miguel swipe under him while he's doing his flips and being a show-off, honestly, which you can, a lot of people like to do that. It's fun to be able to flip and stuff, but in a match like this, it's not something you really would want to do, because you could be out of your element. Obviously, you watch Miguel, he's timing what he's doing perfectly, and then comes with a side kick from the ground, which gives him the point. Then he gives him a roundhouse kick, a spinning roundhouse kick, which when he's standing up, and, that's the point. And he wins. Again, it's another fight that they kind of cut short, but I guess it makes sense. They're not going to do a 30-minute fight scene just to build up to the grand finale of Miguel versus Robbie. So, it's kind of to be expected. You're not going to see the full fights unless they wanted to make it an hour long. So, next fight is Robbie. Robbie versus... what is his name? I feel like they've mentioned the dude's name that he versus in it, but I don't even really care to remember the main cast. You only see these people one time, and that's for this episode, so it's like, eh. But anyways, you see again a lot of the closed fist and knife strike blocks. They're used quite often in this little bitty clip of fight. Then you see Robbie do a spinning roundhouse kick to the person's ribs, which gains Robbie the point, which is, I guess, where they call it the victory, because, they're cutting it short. You don't get to see the whole fight. The next one is Robinson again, when she's fighting, again, the dude in the blue. Don't care to remember his name. Not important. But she gets a point on him. And then, because she does the sweep and then the side kick to, I would almost say the groin, but around that area in a sense. Gives him a point. And then, of course, he retaliates with coming back with a nice sweep. And then what I would consider it a legal move, because he comes down with the axe kick. That there is an axe kick where he comes, sweeps it up into the air, and boom, drops it straight down at the heel. In a lot of places, they don't allow that. So I guess it would just depend on the place. Of course, what I was taught was Taekwondo. This is a different version of martial arts. Some speculate it's Tang Soo Do mixed with a little bit of Japanese karate, hence the whole Okinawa with Daniel-san and all that. So, I mean, it just kind of depends on how you're going to take it. Me personally, all martial arts have some kind of similarities within them. Of course, the whole background of the style is different to every master that's been taught. So it's just going to kind of vary. And of course, each master that gets taught has their own spin on things, how they train their students, what they call the forms. Like I said, my master would call the inner forearm block ice cream scoop. You know, it's just something that they'd help kids kind of remember. So it kind of made it kind of stick to certain kids, which whenever I was helping him train kids, it really did. And it even helped adults, surprisingly. It's just something that they use to help bring, I guess, inspiration and kind of keep it fun for the kids, because sometimes the training is kind of hectic. You're sitting there and working. For me, I loved training. We had 4 classes every day that was taught, and I was there every day constantly. I loved martial arts. I was dedicated to learning both Taekwondo, and then they started teaching special, what would they call it? It's like a special class basically for the advanced students. Then we had XMA, and then we had a Jiu-Jitsu Judo class that I also took just because it was kind of fun to learn a little bit of grappling and different types of forms and such. The next fight is one of my favorites before we actually get to Miguel and Robbie, which is Xander, that's his name, the one in the blue, and Miguel. Obviously, they're both pretty skilled. I got to say Xander has more skills because of the fact that he was last year's winner of the tournament, champion, and obviously he's been in martial arts longer. Another thing that kind of puzzles me is the fact that season 1, they don't really state how long season 1 was, but when you do the math to become a black belt, usually you're at the minimum in Taekwondo for a year straight or plus. So the fact that they're all just black belts out of nowhere is kind of like, I don't know. You know, it is what it is. It is a TV show, so I doubt that a whole year passed between the time of Miguel joining and starting to learn with Johnny to the fact of the All Valley Karate Tournament. Kind of the same with Robbie. But it's a TV show. What can we really expect? Of course, they want to make things more exciting. You don't want to make them all blue belts going and fighting black belts. I mean, you could. Our master did that with me. I was a purple belt fighting black belts at the tournament because I was trained to be a black belt before I was ever a black belt. You know, it's just interesting, and it does bring a little bit of excitement to the tournaments. When you see a purple belt going up against a black belt and then a purple belt beats a black belt, it's like, wow, what's going on there, you know? I mean, it obviously will bring publicity to the studio too, which I guess is good and bad. It just depends on how you want to take it. But in this fight, you see obviously he's doing Xander doing the flips and stuff before the fight begins, showing off. He's a champion. What the hell do you expect, right? If you're badass, you're gonna be badass. The very first thing you see though is he throws a roundhouse kick. Miguel throws a roundhouse kick, which is a roundhouse kick is just where you extend your leg up, turn to whatever point you're gonna be pivoting. So say if you're gonna use your right foot to do the roundhouse kick, you're gonna pivot with your left foot and swing your foot around. That's a roundhouse kick. Kind of pretty simple, really. Hard to get up high, takes a lot of practice and stretching. Next thing you see is a couple of front snap kicks, a side kick, open swing fist, which is something our master called it. It's not actually the technical term for it. It just is where you're swinging your arm around, basically a jab. If you want to be technical, it's a jab. And then you see Miguel blocks it with this palm block, and that's something you could expect. That's the point where I was saying that's actually accurate. That's where a palm strike or a palm block would actually be perfect for that situation. Counteracts his punch, throws him to the side, which allows you to get in and actually make contact with him with either a kick, a punch, a side kick, which you see Miguel throw at him, but he doesn't connect with them. You see Xander throw another side kick. See Miguel block the side kick. You see Miguel throw a couple of snap kicks. Then he does a back kick. Then he does another roundhouse kick. And then he does a spinning roundhouse kick, which actually connects. Hits him in the face. Point. You know, that's where he takes a point on Xander. Next one, which that one's a fun kick to do if you ever learn martial arts. Spinning roundhouse kicks are great. Next kick you see him do is, what is it called? It's when he's blocking the punches. You see Miguel throwing punches, then he blocks it, and then he goes to his back, springs himself back up, starts throwing some spinning roundhouse kicks himself. Is nowhere close to connecting to Miguel. But the next thing you see him do is the backflip, and then Miguel does a spinning side kick and connects right in his ribs. Point, show off. Got lost, basically, to say. So he wins. That's that. And you see Miguel show good spirit, shakes his hand, bows to his opponent. But you don't see him do that with Robbie. But I mean, I guess it is what it is. So now we're gonna go to the last fight, which is, well, not last fight. Last fight before Miguel, which is Hawk and Robbie. This one's an interesting fight because Hawk thinks he's Mr. Badass. He wants to win. You see, the first kick that Robbie comes in and throws is basically kind of a variation of a front snap kick / kind of axe kick. Because, I mean, he has the extension for a front snap kick, but he doesn't go high enough to be an axe kick either. But that's basically the sum of it. Then you see him do a couple of spinning kicks, and then, of course, Hawk takes him down with pretty much a sweep, basically, to say, and punches him, gains a point. From there, we go to the part of the fight that I don't like, which is when, of course, Robbie gets a point on him, and then Hawk has to be crooked and hurts Robbie, which, you don't ever want to see unsportsmanlike conduct, but it happens. It's people get upset, jealous, let anger take over, and that's just kind of something you expect to see, especially because Robbie blocks Hawk coming in quick, and you can tell it irritates Hawk, but then he does a spinning heel kick, which catches Hawk perfectly, pisses Hawk off, which I think is kind of the reason that led to Hawk throwing his little temper tantrum and injuring Robbie, kicking him in the back of the shoulder, gets him disqualified. Blam, that's the end of that. Next fight is the last fight, which is Miguel and Robbie, and we're closing in on my end of my video. I have like 4 minutes left that I can actually talk, so I gotta kind of make this quick, which I figured this would be a longer video that I had to kind of shorten up. So obviously in the Miguel-Robbie fight, which is my favorite fight of the whole episode, you see them bow with each other, something that's accurate. Then they're, of course, get into their stance. Get ready. Something that they always encourage you to do is be loud. So that's something you see them do. Right away, you see the open fist, or closed fist block, and then you go straight to a knife block, to a front snap kick. Block, sweeps, block, and then he does a spinning front snap kick, which catches Miguel. Which, honestly, that one's a little overplayed on how he actually falls down like that, because where he was kicked, I don't think that would happen that way, but it makes it interesting for the show. It makes a lot of people get pumped, like, yeah, Robbie got him, sweet, now what's going to happen next? Next, of course, you see, Miguel knows that Robbie's got a hurt arm, so you kind of see him kind of want to focus for that arm. You see Robbie throw a crescent kick, more like a crescent heel kick. It really is kind of like it looks like a variation of both kicks combined. And then you see Miguel do an axe kick to his shoulder, punches him in the stomach, takes him down, gets a point. Next thing you're going to see is, obviously, Miguel's in his, I guess, mode, ready to actually win the fight. Comes in, you see that Robbie blocks his palm strike that he was trying to do to his head with his upper forearm block. Then, of course, he hits him in his arm, sweeps him off his feet, runs up, punches him in his shoulder, which, he's tearing down his opponent's weaknesses, which is, in this case, the arm. Then we'll go ahead and kind of just zoom into the whole end of the fight because we're running out of time. Another thing you see is, obviously, Robbie throws that double foot kick up to Miguel's face, which was a badass kick. And then a lot of forearm strikes. I'm telling you, a lot of knife strikes, palm strikes. It's interesting. And then, of course, Miguel wins the fight. But what's your aspect on the fight? Obviously, the next video, we're going to try to go into a longer video. I guess it's going to take like a 30-minute video to fully explain all these fights. But what's your input on this? Let me know down below. I want to thank you all for stopping by. Don't forget, stay badass. We'll see you on the next one, everyone.